Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. And here today, we haven't seen him on Ranking the Albums in a little while, but he's back, Mr. Steven Reid, of course, from the UK Connection and in the Prague Sea and all sorts of other things we do here on SOT. What's happening, my friend?
Yeah, all good here, Pete. All good here. Yourself?
Good, good. Just to let everybody know, we just sat here yakking for like 30 minutes before we started recording, and we have Simon waiting in the wings a little bit. So yes, we didn't record this today. We recorded it on UK Connection Day, but yeah, that's all. It's all good because we don't talk every day, obviously. So it's like it's always good to catch up. So today we're going to obviously cover the Tremonti bands. This is Mark Tremonti. There you go. Got a tour shirt there. Mark Tremonti, of course, the guitar player and vocalist, originally with Creed. Creed broke up, started Alter Bridge. Alter Bridge has had a pretty successful career, reunited with Creed fairly recently, but in between all this stuff, he decided to start a band, like a solo band called Tremonti. Originally, the idea was to be able to utilize the songs that he would bring to either Creed or Alter Bridge that maybe didn't quite fit, but he was going to do it in his own band. And I think, Stephen, maybe you agree with me on this. I think initially that made a lot of sense when you listen to the early albums. I don't know about you, but I find the last couple of Tremonti albums don't really sound all that much different than Alter Bridge albums to me.
There's definitely a similarity now that wasn't there at the start.
Yes.
I think that Tremonti have maybe moved into being their own thing, but not, if that makes sense. I think now you're watching how much I give away for later on. I think he's less worried now about it not being certain things and just making a good album with good music on it. I think initially it was, well, this has to fit in that box, that song has to fit in this box. So if it fits in the Alter Bridge box, it can't move into the Tremonti box. And that doesn't seem to be the case. I would
Not
say that
anymore.
definitely the last two albums, maybe two and a bit.
Yeah, I would definitely think the last two albums. Initially, I think, and what most people understood, the Tremonti band was like, okay, well, here's where Mark gets out all the inner thrash and really heavy stuff out of his system because it doesn't quite fit with the other bands. But I remember like fairly early on, I was like, well, these Alter Bridge albums are pretty heavy, I think, most of them in spots. So, but maybe he dialed it up a couple notches for the Tremonti stuff. But yeah, the last couple albums, I don't really see any difference stylistically speaking from an Alter Bridge album or a Tremonti album. We'll get into it, I guess. But we have we've got six albums to rank here. So why don't we go two at a time? We'll start off at six and five, and we'll work our way back up to number to one. But I will say, all very enjoyable albums,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a sense of high quality to all of them, which, if you're familiar with his work with Alter Bridge, or if you're a Creed fan, you kind of expect that.
Yeah.
Really good guitar player, great voice, and he knows how to write a catchy tune. So there are catchy hooks all throughout these albums. It's just some albums to me are a little bit more successful than others, but at the same time, some of them are a little interchangeable, I think. So I'll stop there.
Yes. This is. I'm going to put anyone that's sitting at home playing album ranking bingo. Get your bingo card out now because I'm going to say this was really difficult to do. This was really hard to do. And as Pete's just mentioned, it's really hard to do because in many ways they're not similar, but there's a definite kind of theme that runs from start to finish across all the albums. So number six for me is All I Was. So this is the debut. This is from 2012 when they were on the Fret 12 label, which I'll get to in a bit. Always makes me think they're on Roadrunner when I see them on the side of the CDs. But there you go. So who's in the band? Mark Tremonti, lead guitars and vocals, Eric Friedman on guitars and bass, and Garrett Whitlock on drums. So only just the three of them at this point. And produced by Michael Baskett, as they all are, which also probably says a lot about why they all sound as if they come from the same school, because they do, realistically. So yes, it's a great mix of kind of guitar-driven riff rock that is still based on melody and not bludgeon. I would suggest in these earlier albums, you can sense Mark Tremonti giving himself a little bit more kind of guitar room to breathe. They are more kind of guitar heavy and driven albums at the start. And he proves to be right from the off. I think his vocals have improved across the albums personally. I think his confidence has improved across the albums, maybe more than his voice. But he's a good singer right from the off. He'd already sang with Alter Bridge a little bit by this stage, but as debuts go, it's a real kind of statement of intent, I would suggest. Wish You Well, that's catchy and it's memorable, still has a lot of urgency, which is what I like about them. The songs like Brains, it's grittier, it's maybe a bit 90s influenced, really metallic in places. There's almost a kind of thrash feel across some of these early albums that was obviously some of the kind of intent behind what they were doing. I love the guitar solo on Leave It Alone. It's just really solid. It is really solid from start to finish. An excellent album. Number five, that's why I think they're on Roadrunner when I look at all these albums, because it just looks like Roadrunner, but it says Fret 12.
I
But there
know.
you go. So number five is album number two for me. This is Cauterized from 2015. Eric Friedman is now fully concentrating on guitars because you've got a certain guy called Wolfgang Van Halen
That's right.
on bass. Okay. Um, this is harder, it's heavy, it's riff driven, it's melodic. I'm saying the same things again already. This was, of course, part of a two-part album kind of release. There was two albums came out at the same sessions. This and going to come up further along, Dust, and therefore that similarity kind of continues. I do wonder, and there's not a single song across any of these albums that I go, that's not good. But if they just made the one, if they'd made the one out of these two albums and just made 10 songs out of the 20, might well be their best album. But as it is, it's not because there's about five great songs on both and five okay songs on both. But the formula doesn't move on a huge amount from the debut for me at this point. I like Dark Trip, it's quite brooding. I think Tremonti's vocals are perfect for that kind of more atmospheric sort of number. And the two singles from this album, Another Heart and Flying Monkeys, I like them. They're really immediate. They were good singles. They hooked you in
Flying
straight
Monkey. Flying Monkey
off
is
that.
great. Yeah.
And I like the grounding kind of pounding feel of Tie the Noose. So yeah, so 6 and 5 for me.
Cool. All right. All right. Well, our ranking is going to be a little different, which is good. I kind of like that.
Your ranking, Pete, might be closer to my daughter's because she's a massive fan.
Oh,
And
she is. Okay. All
I
right.
told her what I'd done here, and she was like, "No, Dad, you're wrong."
Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right. My number six is going to be their fifth album from 2021, Marching in Time, if you got that handy for you. So they are on now Napalm Records. There you go. Um, Good album, as all these are. I just find a couple of them a little bit uneven. And again, it comes down to how many songs out of some of these albums are fairly long, right? Like 12, 13, 14 tracks. I think it's funny because most of these albums, and I know you hate the term, but most of the albums, Tremonti really starts off the albums with a real banger, right? A World Away is not your typical high energy Tremonti track to start off an album, right? I mean, it's more of kind of like a moody mid-paced track, which this band does very well. And I think if you're familiar with Mark, whether it be in Creed or in Alter Bridge, there's a lot of moody stuff in a lot of these albums by these three bands. But there's some really great stuff on here. Now and Forever is a great chugging anthem. You got some more melodic, memorable stuff, thrown further, kind of generic for me. But I like Let That Be Us. I think that's really good. That's intense. You know, what is it called? Under the Sun and Not Afraid to Lose. Kind of bland for me. Bleak is great though. I absolutely love Bleak. It's one of my favorite songs on the latter part of the catalog, the more recent stuff. Great guitar solo. Would You Kill, Cranks. Um, and then it's got the song Marching in Time, which is this big, long, kind of epic track that goes in all sorts of directions. And dare I say the P word, it's kind of proggy. Maybe. Maybe my favorite track on the album. I find this album a little uneven because there's some stuff on here I don't really give two craps about, but there's some really good stuff on here. So I could totally see someone ranking this higher because the good stuff is really good. So that's my number six. My number five is A Dying Machine from 2018, their fourth album, also on Napalm Records. And again, that opens up with Bringer of War. Killer. He does that like fast pick kind of thrashy, riffy type thing as good as anybody. And I love when he like does songs where he'll start the song off with that really fast, crushing, thrashy riff, and then they'll go away from it for a little bit, and you'll get this
Mhm.
sweet chorus, whatever, and then the riff will come back in. You'll be like, "Oh, okay," and it's just like this back and forth yin and yang thing. Really, really good. From the Sky is another really good one, and the title track is really great. The first three tracks on this album just absolutely are as good as anything else in the catalog. I feel it kind of loses a little steam after that and then picks up again later in the album. The mid part of the album, for me, it's okay. It's good. There's pretty good tracks. I mean, Throw Them to the Lions is totally amazing. Great chorus on that one. But you got stuff like As the Silence Becomes Me, The Day When Legions Burned, eh. But there's some great, and Desolation, I don't like at all. That's one of the songs that's a little snoozy for me. But and then the closing instrumental doesn't really go anywhere. So for me, I find it's really front loaded. There's some killer tracks on here, and a couple that don't really work for me all that well. And the back end to me just kind of peters out a little bit. But otherwise, it's still a very solid record because you got some great songs on here. So that's my 6 and 5.
Yes, as with a lot of kind of rankings that we do, we're picking faults. Nothing here is bad. Do you know? It is about levels of good, I would suggest,
Yeah,
in
because you
this.
know what? Even like the stuff like the more ballady stuff that for me is just a little kind of yeah. Even those, I'm kind of like, well, that chorus is pretty fucking great, right? Stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
because he drops in even on these kind of dreary, moody kind of songs that for me just kind of float along and don't really do all that much. There's hooks everywhere in this catalog, right? So even if like musically it's not grabbing me, the vocals are always good, and then he throws in that little chorus, and you're kind of like, yeah, it's okay. I don't really like the song all that much, but man, that chorus is great, right? That sort of things. That's this catalog. That's Mark Tremonti, I think, regardless of what he's working on, which band.
For those watching, let me interpret what Pete's just said. When he says snoozy, I mean atmospheric, because I think that's what we're going to find with this catalog is we're
There's a
completely
lot of
different.
atmospheric
I
stuff in
like.
here. Yeah,
There's a
I
lot of
try not to use the
atmospheric.
same words over and over again because I know I'm gonna use atmospheric a lot going forward. Because
It
yeah,
is though. It is. I really. There is definitely, and I don't think it's intentional, but I think there's a formula. There's a formula across the six, and that evolves from the start to the finish rather than just stays the same across them all. I think there's more atmosphere the further through the catalogue you go. Interestingly,
oh yeah,
there you go. So my number four is Dust. So that's the brother or sister of Cauterize. It's the same again. 2016 for this one. And usually it's a bad idea when a band kind of go, we've got enough for two albums. Well, don't do it. I'm okay with it this time round, actually. Do you know, I still think there's a really killer album between the two of them, but both are good. And I prefer the second one, unusually enough, and enough that I didn't have to really think about it. But it is just more of the same from Cauterize, I would suggest. But I think there's a little bit more kind of light and shade across Dust than there is Cauterize. I like My Last Mistake. I like the Cage energy levels just seem to kind of take a step up there compared to Cauterize. And I just think that the writing on this album, although it's all from the same session, the songs they've chosen here, it's just a little tighter. It's a little bit more focused more than anything else. The title track is one of my favourite kind of mid-paced boilers that the band do. I like the mid-paced stuff. I really like the mid-paced stuff that's in this catalogue. The kind of clean guitar sections with the kind of Roman drums, expressive vocals. I think it's a real strength, and I think it's more of a strength the further in you get. I really like Betray Me. That's kind of old school metal in places, and I really like Catching Fire. That kind of's got a bass roar about it that just really does it for me. So yeah, that is Dust. My number three is from 2018. This is A Dying Machine. So yes, this is the first one for Napalm Records. Wolfgang Van Halen. It's harder to say than I realised. He's now off doing WVH. That's easier. Mammoth on his own. So he's gone. So Eric Friedman's back on bass for this one. And I kind of think they really click into gear by this stage. Um, we're clearly going to disagree, and that is cool because the whole catalogue is really good. But I just think that they're beginning to really kind of live and breathe it a little bit more. It's much less of a project and it's more of a band. This is the first album where the songs are credited to Tremonti and not Mark Tremonti. And I think that comes across a little bit, to be fair. I think the production is a little bit cleaner and more forceful, even though it's the same producer across all of these albums. It just feels a little bit more connected from start to finish for me. And I also think that Mark Tremonti really now sounds like a frontman rather than a really good singing guitarist. And I think this is the point where it moves over from me to thinking, do you know, he's quite good for a guitarist too. He's a great singer, actually, isn't he? A really, really good singer. So the heavier stuff like From the Sky, really like that. The chorus soars, but the verse and everything takes no prisoners whatsoever. I really like the brooding guitar intro to Throw You to the Lions, and then it kind of hurtles along at full pelt. And Traipse is one of those ones that's got that kind of more atmospheric vocals. I really, really like that an awful lot. So yeah, this is a great album. As Pete mentioned, the first three are just absolutely essential. I like the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. It's a really strong catalog. It's a really strong catalog. My number four is the newest one. The End Will Show Us How from 2025, sixth album, Napalm Records. Kind of dig that cover. It's kind of interesting. You know, like how they go to the small letters and it just gets bigger at the bottom. Uh,
I always think it's actually called "How Our Show Will End."
yeah,
You never read up that we do.
I know, I know.
Sorry. I digress.
It starts off with another really good one, The Mother of the Earth and I. Strong track, really good. I love One More Time, big sledgehammer riff. It's funny because I think that another one of those albums that starts off with a real bang. The beginning of the album is just great. And Just Too Much. What a I wrote it down in my notes, and I hate overusing this term, but every time I hear this song, it's got a face melting riff. Mark Tremonti is like, he is such a great riff guy. He doesn't get enough credit. And I listen to that song and I'm just kind of like, that riff comes on and it's like my face just goes, just like falls off the side of my head. It's so good. And his tone is always so great. And then he plays
Yes.
Paul Reed Smith guitars and I love his sound. It's just really, really good. I love Nails. Um, it's not over the ballad. It's okay. It doesn't really do a lot for me. I like it. Title track is pretty mellow too, but the vocal melodies are outstanding. I don't really care too much for Tomorrow We Will Fall. It's kind of generic alt metal for me. It's okay though. Nothing really bad, but then I'll take my chances. Love that. Love the chorus. Love the riffs on that. You get some moody stuff on the back end. You got Now That I've Made It, which has a big chorus. It's big up tempo. I mean, again, I find that the latter couple of albums to me, they and again, they're developing an identity, which I think is cool, but these albums just don't sound all that much different to me from Alter Bridge albums, other than you don't have Miles Kennedy singing on them. Because some of this stuff, if Miles comes in, it just sounds like Alter Bridge stuff to me. And it has a lot of the same qualities. And I guess that's a good thing, right? It's just you got Mark doing all the singing, which is fine. Um, but I think it's a really strong album. I mean, I reviewed this. I think I gave it like 3.5. It really was a 3.75 out of 4. I think I like it a little bit more than that in the months since I've gotten this. But it's good. There's some really, really great stuff on here. It's a very, very solid album for them. So that's my number four. And my number three is going to be the debut, All I Was. Um, I like this album. I think it's pretty heavy. Again, the first three albums are the heavier ones of the catalog, and then it gets a little bit more varied going on. But there's some really great, catchy, and brooding stuff on this album. I mean, that's the one thing. I'll use the term. There's this brooding atmosphere throughout this whole catalog, which is like it's undeniable. And again, Wish You Well is great. Brains is great. The chugga chugga riffing is great. The brooding melodies is great. The Things I've Seen, another really good one. Um, then you got like No Way Out, which is very Creedish sounding, but it's fine. Giving Up is great. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good album for me. It's brooding, but it's really heavy, and the guitar playing is amazing. And I think, for me, I remember when I first got the first album, I was kind of like, wow, he can really sing well. It's like, why exactly is he not singing in Alter Bridge? Right? 'Cause, I mean, I love Miles Kennedy, so don't get me wrong. I don't
Yep.
want to see him not sing for that band, but it's just like you listen to this and you think, why was he never always the singer, right? I don't understand because He's good. He's really good. And if you watch like live clips in more recent years, and you said it before, he has developed into he's a fully fledged frontman now. He looks confident up there singing and cranking out the riffs and the solos like he's been doing it his whole career. Just do it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. More on that later, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number two, this is good because we're all over the place, and I think there's the right catalogue for that because I do think that there's strength right across it, but I do also think that depending on what you prefer musically in general, maybe informs how you rank this catalogue.
Yeah, oh, for
Okay,
sure.
so my number two is from 2021. This is Marching in Time. So there's quite a bit of a change for the band here because you now have a band. Ryan Bennett has come in and replaced Garrett Whitlock on drums. He ended up with Wolfgang Van Halen, funnily enough. And then you've got Tanner Keegan coming in on bass. Same again, they're not reinventing the wheel album on album, but they're definitely refining and honing what they do. And by this stage, exactly what Pete has mentioned, you can imagine some of these songs now beginning to move over into kind of alter bridge territory. And that isn't true of the earlier stuff. I would say there's less reliance by this stage on that kind of old school thrash sound. And they are more of a modern, and I use that word advisedly because a lot of people, you say modern metal, and they go, "Eee." And I don't mean to sound like a modern metal band. I mean, modern metal bands are 30 years old now anyway. So I don't mean any of those things. It sounds more current than what they were doing at the start, I think. But the basis is still the same. Punchy heavy rockers, interspersed with more considered kind of mid-paced tracks, lots of atmosphere, lots of light and shade. And the balance is beginning to tip the other way now. There's maybe more of that than there is the absolute kind of foot stomping metal than there was earlier on. To me, personally, it's a testament to this album. You mentioned, Pete, you think some of these are too long. This is 58 minutes. That's definitely on that threshold of could we lose a song or two. I put this one on. I was surprised by how quickly it finishes. I like everything about March in Time. I just think it's really, really good. The Last of Us, that's one of those really excellent mid-paced songs that I really like. The guitar solo is fantastic in that. Let That Be Us, that's kind of really up and at 'em. It's a real sing along. They do that really well too. And then you've got things like In One Piece, that's urgent and insistent. Would You Kill, it's kind of hard and heavy. And I love the title track. Absolutely love the title track. As you said, we could use the P word, progressive. It's just, we're at a stage where they don't care what it is now. We're writing songs we like and we're just going to put them out there. And that leaves my number one. Now, the eagle eyed among you will have noticed that I've done something I've never ever done before. I've ranked this catalogue from oldest to newest. Okay, and I genuinely sat down yesterday and thought, I need to mix this up. I really need to mix this up. I can't just make it look like I've gone, I like the old ones less than I like the new ones. I like the old ones a little bit less than I like the new ones. And that's just how it works. So that is the truth of it. The end will show us how from this year on Napalm. I just absolutely love this album. This is one of my favourite albums of the year so far. I really like where we've got to now. Yes, there's way more here that you could consider alter bridge material. I would maybe go as far as to suggest with these last two albums. Now, don't tell Miles. I maybe prefer these two albums to Alter Bridge's last couple of albums. That's where I am with it now, and I really do like Miles Kennedy's solo albums are good too. So it's not about the singer, although they're very different vocally. I would suggest because Miles has got way more range and he's willing to use it and he can hold the notes longer. Mark Tremonti is definitely more about kind of power and precision and atmosphere. I would suggest, and it is a real big difference from it. But I really, really like this album. The Mother Earth and I just think it's got so much about it. It just has variance and it moves and it's got just a real kind of feel to it that I can't kind of shake off when I listen to it. I like the drama of One More Time. I like the way it builds it in the chorus. That is fantastic. I like the power and the force of nails. Turn that up, and it's absolutely immense at volume. I like the patient attack of the bottom, but it's the atmospheric builders that I've mentioned all the way through. It's not over. I like that best on that album. I really do. It's so full of emotion. It's so believable, and it stops me on my tracks every time I hear it. If I'm doing something else when this album is on, I have to stop and listen to this song. And I was delighted because I didn't think it was the sort of thing that they would play live, and they played it when I saw them a few months ago. And I left. I mean, I was a happy lad anyway because they were great from start to finish. Really, really good. I just love that song. So yeah, this is my number one. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really great tracks on there. I didn't even All the Wicked Things
Mm,
is so great. That
yep.
guitar breakdown, like three
It's,
quarters of the way through, I'm like, yes.
and it's worth mentioning too that when you see them live, you realize you appreciate actually there's not just one guitar player in this band.
Yes,
Eric
correct.
Friedman is very, very talented, and I'm sure somebody in the comments will say, you haven't mentioned Eric Friedman enough. The two of them, they both play a lot of the solos and they both do a lot of the riffing, and together it really works. So credit to both of them.
And your comment about the last couple of Alter Bridge albums, yeah, there's a little bit of a sameness that has permeated the last couple of records.
Yeah, I think so.
There's great songs on them, but it's like, I remember like hearing the last album, which I really like, but I was like,
Mhm.
can't thinking, God, it seems like half of these songs I've heard already, you know?
It's kind of getting that way. I would agree.
Yeah. So anyway. All right. So my number two is Dust, the third album. I really like these two albums that kind of go together. Yeah, I really like them. And not surprisingly, they're the heaviest out of the whole catalog. So I just, man, My Last Mistake, that fast palm muted riff thing that he does on a lot of these songs, it's just so good. That gets me every time. I love the cage. I think that's just terrific. Um, Once Dead just completely crushes, and those drums are just out of control. Again, boom, 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 right out of the gate. The first couple tracks just pulls you right in and just doesn't let go. And I think the title track is great. I think they released it as a single, but I'm like, you listen to it now, you're kind of like, how did this song not do really well? Like, but then again, it's 2016. That's why it didn't do all that well, right? What are you going to do? And you know what? There's really tasty solos on a lot of these songs on this album and every album. But the funny thing is, you would think like Mark Tremonti, his solo band, there's going to be tons and tons of guitar solos. There really isn't. They're
No.
very economical. I think he plays longer solos in Alter Bridge, actually,
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense, right? But it's like whatever.
Yeah. Do you know, that's something I realised going back and listening to these again. Because I said early on, I think the idea initially was to stretch out guitar wise. It definitely doesn't pan out that way.
No, not at
It
all.
does not pan out that way. Anything but, truth be told. But for me, in a good way.
Yeah. But I remember like going into this catalog years ago, I was kind of thinking, all right, well, where's all the like the longer guitar solos and all that kind of stuff? And yeah, it's a little bit heavier, but then I was like, I think he plays more guitar solos than the other band. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I love Rising Storm on here. Unable to See is also really good, very memorable. It's got a Creed Alter Bridge song. I really like this a lot. But my number one is Cauterize. There you go. I mean, come on, radical change. Just right out of the gate, man. Boom. They are masters at that first song that just kind of just punches you right in the jugular, and you're like, it's just so good, so good. I think I really like Wolfgang Van Halen's bass work on this
Yeah.
album. He's like, if you really listen, you can hear him. He's like, he's doing all this cool stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat, right? Wolfgang is a very good musician. Obviously, look who his father was, but yeah, I didn't. Flying Monkeys is absolutely killer. That's probably a top three song for me in the catalog. I just love it. I think it's really good. I love the title track. I love Arm Yourself. Dark Trip is kind of grungy and doomy almost. Can you tell I like heavy stuff? That's why I'm gravitating towards this one. And you got Another Heart, which has got nice melodies and big riffs and stuff like that. And then Tie the Noose is great. Sympathy is catchy and anthemic. Closer Providence is moody, great vocals, great chorus. There's nothing on this album that I want to skip at all. So to me, I just find Cauterize and Dust to be start to finish more what I really like from him. And I like a lot of the mellower stuff on some of the other albums, but I just find these two are the hardest hitting ones, and they're just more up my alley. That's all. But you can make a case for any of these albums, right? It's just like you, I had a hard time with this ranking, and I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking, God, if we do this again in like 4 months, my ranking might be completely different.
Yeah, I would
So,
agree with that. I think that it would depend on my mood because sometimes I'm in the mood for heavier stuff, and that could completely turn it on its axis for me here because I have gone with the more atmospheric stuff. But then when you put the early stuff on, you think, wow, these are great. So it's real difficult, really difficult.
yeah. And you know, I get that Tremonti and his three bands. You know, there's I remember when I did the review on the new album, you know, in January, whenever that came out. I remember some people were like, I don't really like this kind of like alt metal kind of grungy thing that he does. And I'm like, it sounds so 90s. And I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. There's a lot of really fresh sounding stuff on here. It's just, you know, I mean, the problem is he comes from that era. I think he
Yes.
will forever be followed by the stigma of Creed because some people love Creed, a lot of people hate Creed. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Alter Bridge never really caught on in a more major way because I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not the biggest Creed fan, but I love Alter Bridge, and I never understood why Alter Bridge wasn't as big as Creed, if not bigger, because there's stuff in that catalog that's just absolutely amazing. And then you listen to this catalog, and you're like, there's amazing stuff in this catalog too. So why aren't these bands bigger?
Yeah, I
Wrong
would echo
era?
that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think there's a stigma around Creed. I'm not a Creed fan. I remember many, many moons ago being sent a DVD to review of probably a Reformation show from Creed. I really didn't like it. Really didn't like very much of it at all. And I thought, well, if that's as good as it gets, then that's as good as it gets. And I didn't latch on to Alter Bridge right at the very start because of that. So I was guilty too. But it was only once I'd heard a few songs and then thought, oh, I maybe need to listen to one of these albums. And then thought, oh, maybe I need to listen to all of these albums that I suddenly thought, you know what, more fool me.
Yeah, I mean, there's an atmosphere and a brooding sense of melancholy throughout all three bands that I think is the similar type thing. But I don't know, just some, I mean, you know, I like a couple Creed songs here and there, but for the most part, I don't really care about them. I don't really like Scott Stapp as a vocalist. I mean, that's my main problem there. But then, you know, with Alter Bridge, it's like there's way more hooks, there's way more uplifting stuff. And all of a sudden, wow, listen to all those guitars, right? Even though Creed had guitars going on too. And you got, you know, the two singers, and Miles is a great singer and he plays guitar too. So it's just, I don't know. I find sometimes the Creed stuff is a little depressing. Whereas even though there's very moody elements to both Alter Bridge and Tremonti, it's not depressing music for me. It's just
No, I,
moody,
I
but in a
actually,
different way.
yeah, I think that the moodier atmospheric stuff in both Alter Bridge and Tremonti is actually more uplifting
Yeah.
than it is kind of downbeat. Definitely, it's interesting because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of comment and ideas out there, and who's right, who's wrong, who knows. But I never really listened to Tremonti or Alter Bridge and go, yeah, it's kind of 90s music. I just, I don't actually feel it, especially
Yeah.
Alter Bridge. I just think they're a really good rock band.
Yeah.
They just, they sound roughly of when they arrived, and every band should really. There's lots of bands don't, but every
That's
band
true.
should
That's
to
true.
some extent or other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the albums of Tremonti. If you are a fan and you know these albums well, please rank them as you like them down in the comments below. And if you've watched our ranking here and you're like, well, now I don't know where to start because their rankings were completely different. Well, there's only six albums, so
yeah,
you can start anywhere here and start from the new one and go back. Start from the first one, go up. It doesn't really matter that you're going to find good stuff everywhere in the catalog. So happy listening, everybody, and happy ranking for you fans. And we'll see Steven back here on. I mean, we have to get to it at some point, and it'll be probably sometime over the next like 2 months or so. But we've been talking about doing Palace forever. We'll get to it. So
good.
that's
Yeah.
coming next from the two of us together. So stay tuned for that. What is happening next weekend? Oh, I think Brownsville Station. So myself and Grant Arthur will be ranking the catalog of Brownsville Station. That's coming next. The one after that is going to be Coney Hatch with Rich Catino and John Gaffney. And then Lynn and I have to get back together to record the Zebra album ranking. So that will be real soon. And you're going to get a double episode one of these weekends. You'll have two ranking the albums episodes because want to fit Lynn back in, and I don't want to have to make her wait another month because by then, Lord knows if we'll ever get to it. So we got to strike while the iron is hot. She's feeling better now. Let's get it done. So that'll be coming next week or the week after. So that's happening. So a lot of good stuff coming up. We got Hellstar, Virgin Steel, Night Flight Orchestra with Simon, and God, what else do I got here? Honeymoon Suite and Vicious Rumors and Malice, and the list is long, people. So yes, and intimidating. I know. I'm looking at that Virgin Steel catalog. I'm like, my God,
I'm
that's
just
that's
sitting here
that's
thinking,
as
there's
that's as
some
bad as the
there's some
Riot ranking.
yeah. I did
Uh,
to let the viewers in on this little secret. I messaged about Tremonti a couple of days ago, and Pete was like, "I'm just getting my head around the Riot one because I'm just needing to fit that in quick." And I thought, "That's not quick. It's not quick."
I had to, just so everybody knows, I had to get that Riot ranking together in like 3 days because like I planned to do the Zebra show with Lynn, which is only 4 albums. I'm already ready to go on that. And then she got sick with pneumonia, so she was in the hospital. And then like I messaged her when she first got in the hospital, and she goes, and I'm like, "You want me to put it off?" She goes, "No, no, we'll do it." And I'm like, "But you don't know when you're getting out of the hospital. You can't do it from a hospital bed and you're not ready yet." So I said, "Let's put it off until you feel better." And then I'm like, "Okay." And I said, "You know what?" She goes, "Well, what are you going to do in place of it?" I'm like, "Well, I could do Possessed, but I'm like, I've been working on this Riot one forever." I'm like, I don't know if I could put it together in like 3 days, but you know what? I think I'm going to try. And then, like a day later, I messaged her. I'm like, I can't believe I agreed to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. She goes, "You're the one who picked it, not me." And I'm like, I know, I did this to myself, but it came out great. I just immersed myself in the albums for over like a 3 day period, and I think it came out really good. So I can't
Indeed.
complain. I was up for the challenge, Stephen.
And it turned out brilliantly as well.
Thank
Yes.
you, thank you. So now the Virgin Steel is on. That's a whole other ball game. Rich Catino messaged me like a week ago. He's like, "You ready to do Virgin Steel soon?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. There's no way in hell I'm ready to do that yet. June maybe. Yes, then now we're talking, but not yet." So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Simon's waiting, so we got to go. For Stephen Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week on Ranking the Albums, Brownsville Station. Gary Joyce, get everybody ready. Start listening to your albums, get your ranking ready, and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.